first at 9. This Tuesday, the 1st of October 2024. Open case. Government vows to proceed with bond scam investigations. First contact. Sri Lanka will only hold preliminary discussions with the IMF delegation expected to visit Sri Lanka. Any changes to the IMF agreement to be reviewed at the end of the month. Limiting luxury. Cabinet appoints 3-member committee to submit recommendations on limiting privileges of parliamentarians and former presidents. Global support. US and Russian diplomats call on Sri Lanka's new president. A personal message from the Russian president handed over.
ඔබේ විශ්වාසය දෙනු සෙන්සුරයින් දැන් ළඟමැති ෆාමසියෙන් ලබාගත හැක.
වැඩිම මනාපෙන් ජනතා තේරීම මෙවරත්
සුදේශී ඔරිජිනල් කුහුඹම තමයි.
From Ada Derana, this is Ada Derana First at 9 with Indivadi Amuwata. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
And a very warm welcome. You're joining us once again here at Ada Derana 24 with the very latest from across Sri Lanka and around the world. Let me take you straight to your top story making headlines tonight. A high-level delegation of the International Monetary Fund led by the IMF's Director of Asia-Pacific Development, Krishna Srinivasan, is set to visit Sri Lanka on an official visit tomorrow and hold discussions with President Anura Dissanayaka. Commenting on the visit, newly appointed cabinet spokesperson Minister Vijitha Herath asserted that during the government's discussions with the IMF delegation, further proceedings of the IMF program in Sri Lanka following the election of the new president will be taken up. The cabinet spokesperson also highlighted that a meeting to discuss the core contents and structure of Sri Lanka's agreement with the IMF will be taken up for discussion in New York at the end of October.
A high-level delegation of the International Monetary Fund, led by the IMF's Director of Asia-Pacific Development, Krishna Srinivasan, is scheduled to arrive in Colombo tomorrow. The delegation will remain in the island until the 4th of October. During the official visit, the IMF team will meet President Anura Dissanayaka. According to an IMF spokesperson, the delegation's visit is aimed at holding discussions pertaining to the latest economic developments and economic reforms under Sri Lanka's IMF-supported economic program. Meanwhile, newly appointed cabinet spokesman Minister Vijitha Herath commented on the government's planned engagements with the IMF delegation set to arrive in the island tomorrow.
Cabinet Mandale IMF ගැන සාකච්ඡා වුණේ නැහැ.
We did not discuss the IMF during the cabinet meeting. We are of the view that the IMF agreement must be reviewed. However, such in-depth discussions will not be conducted with the delegation set to arrive tomorrow. A preliminary discussion on how the IMF will proceed with its operations following the appointment of the new president will be conducted. A discussion pertaining to structural facts of the agreement is set to take place in New York at the end of this month, with the participation of the central bank governor, secretary to the Ministry of Finance, as well as the senior economic advisors to the president. The core contents and structure of the agreement will be discussed during that meeting. Amending the contents of the IMF agreement will not be discussed at length during the discussions scheduled to take place tomorrow and the day after. This visit is merely a courtesy visit.
IMF ගිවිසුමේ අන්තර්ගතය වෙනස් කිරීමක් පිළිබඳව ගැඹුරින් සාකච්ඡා වෙන්නේ නැහැ. ඇත්තට මේක ටිකක් courtesy call visit එකක් විදිහට තමයි තියෙන්නේ.
Horizon Campus 2024 Intake 2. Register now.
චන්දරුසුමේ කාගෙන් මනාපේ සිංහ TV සඳහා සුපිරි deal.
The government today vowed to proceed with investigations into the bond scam of 2015. Cabinet spokesperson Minister Vijitha Herath speaking to media this morning following the first cabinet meeting of the new government said the investigation can now be carried out broadly. He also mentioned that former President Ranil Wickremesinghe can be questioned as he no longer has presidential immunity as provided by the Constitution. Meanwhile, commenting on the restructuring of the state-owned enterprises, he said a decision on Sri Lankan Airlines will be taken after NPP forms a government in the parliamentary election.
බැඳුම්කර වංචාව සම්බන්ධයෙන් අර මූලික කටයුතු ආරම්භ කරා කියලා කිව්වා. ඒ සම්බන්ධයෙන් වැඩි පැහැදිලි කිරීමක් කරන්න පුළුවන් නම්.
මහජන ආරක්ෂක අමාත්‍යාංශය මගින් දැනටම ඒ පිළිබඳ අදාළ නීත්‍යානුකූලව කළ යුතු පරීක්ෂණ ආරම්භ කරලා තියෙනවා.
We have already begun investigations. We are reviewing all previous reports related to this incident. Ranil Wickremesinghe is no longer the president and he no longer has immunity. This delay in the case was due to that reason. However, we now have the authority to summon him to court.
රනිල් වික්‍රමසිංහ මහත්මයාත් දැන් ජනාධිපතිවරයා නෙමෙයි. ඒ නිසා මුක්තිය නැහැ. ඒ නඩුව ඇත්තටම ඉදිරියට ගියේ නැත්තේ ව්‍යවස්ථාවේ තියෙන මුක්තිය බලය පාවිච්චි වෙලා. දැන් අපිට එතුමාව අධිකරණය හමුවට කැඳවන්න බලය තියෙනවා.
එමෙතුමෙන් දැන් ශ්‍රී ලංකන් ගුවන් සේවය ගැන ඔබතුමාලා වර්තමාන රජය ගන්න ප්‍රතිපත්තිය මොකක්ද?
මේ අන්තර්කාලය තුල එවැනි වෙනස් ප්‍රතිපත්තිමේ තීන්දුව වලට යන්නේ නැහැ.
We will not make any policy decisions regarding this matter at this time. A decision will be made after the new government is formed. Many former politicians have also been granted police security. During your term as an MP, you are entitled to 2 police officers for your security. However, after your term, you are no longer entitled to this benefit. It is important to note that some individuals who are not politicians have received this security. We have recalled approximately 1,100 officers and the vehicles they were using. These privileges were established through an act passed in Parliament. We must amend the privileges of the President in the upcoming Parliament. However, we do not currently have a Parliament that can address this. The new Parliament will convene on November 21st and we will take the necessary actions as soon as it is in session. The previous government awarded a tender to a new firm for the production of e-passports. According to the tender, the first batch was expected in June, but the firm later indicated they could not deliver on time. Subsequently, the cabinet decided to procure 750 passports from the same firm to meet demand. Even with this arrangement, the first batch of approximately 47,500 passports is scheduled to arrive between October 15th and 21st. Meanwhile, the previous firm has obtained an interim order preventing us from issuing these passports. We are doing our best to resolve this situation.
ඒකට අපිට අලුත් පාස්පෝර්ට් එක නිකුත් කරන්නත් දැන් වාරණයක් ඇවිල්ලා තියෙනවා.
A committee is to be appointed to submit recommendations on limiting the privileges of members of parliament, ministers and former presidents. The government will also issue 5 billion rupees of the 11 billion rupees required for the parliamentary election from the Consolidated Fund for year 2024. The remaining 6 billion rupees will be allocated from the vote on account expected to be submitted to Parliament for concurrence in 2025. Additionally, the new Cabinet of Ministers have approved the appointing of the Ceylon Chamber of Commerce Chairman Duminda Hulangamur and NPP National Executive Committee member Dr. Anil Fernando as senior consultants on economic affairs and finance to the President during their inaugural meeting.
The new Cabinet of Ministers convened for their inaugural meeting last evening, chaired by President Anurukumara Dissanayaka. During the meeting, Minister Vijitha Herath was appointed the media spokesman for the Cabinet of Ministers. The Cabinet also granted approval for 6 key decisions. The first of which is to issue 5 billion rupees of the 11 billion rupees required for the parliamentary election from the Consolidated Fund for the year 2024. The remaining 6 billion rupees are to be allocated from the vote on account expected to be submitted to Parliament for concurrence in 2025. Meanwhile, a 3-member committee is to be appointed to submit recommendations on limiting the entitlements, allowances and privileges of members of Parliament, ministers and former presidents. The committee will comprise retired Ministry Secretary D. Dissanayaka and retired District Secretary Jayantha Bulamulla and will be chaired by retired Supreme Court Justice K.T. Chitrasiri. Approval was also granted to vest the Finance Secretary with the power to release imposts for essential expenses without obtaining special approval from the Minister of Finance. Additionally, Chairman of the Ceylon Chamber of Commerce Duminda Hulangamur and National Executive Committee member of the National People's Power Dr. Anil Fernando are to be appointed as senior consultants on economic affairs and finance to the President on an honorary basis. Meanwhile, HSKG Bandara, a Grade 1 officer of the Administrative Service, will be appointed the Director General of Government Information. Bandara replaces Dinit Chintaka Karunaratne, who previously served in the post. Nilu Shabala Surya will be appointed the Acting Controller General of Immigration and Emigration, temporarily replacing Harshi Lukpitia, who has been placed in remand custody by a Supreme Court order. Balasurya is a special grade officer of the Administrative Service, who is currently Additional Secretary of the Ministry of Public Security.
US Ambassador to Sri Lanka Julie Chung met with President Anura Kumara Dissanayake today, making her first official meeting with the new Sri Lankan president. Meanwhile, the Russian ambassador to Sri Lanka, Levan Jagarian, also paid his first official call on President Dissanayake. During the visit, the Russian ambassador presented President Dissanayake with a personal message from Russian President Vladimir Putin.
Ambassador of the United States to Sri Lanka, Julie Chung, met with President Anura Kumara Dissanayake at the Presidential Secretariat earlier today. Ambassador Chung extended her congratulations to President Dissanayake on his inauguration and emphasized the importance of fostering robust bilateral relations between the United States and Sri Lanka. The President's office stated that discussions between President Dissanayake and the US Ambassador focused on enhancing diplomatic relations between the United States and Sri Lanka and fostering economic and social cooperation in areas of mutual interest to both nations. In the meantime, Ambassador of the Russian Federation to Sri Lanka, Levan Jagarian, also paid a call on President Dissanayake today. During the meeting at the Presidential Secretariat, Ambassador Jagarian extended his congratulations to President Dissanayake on his election and delivered a personal message from Russian President Vladimir Putin. President Putin, in his message, states that he expects the bilateral relationship between Sri Lanka and Russia will deepen under the leadership of President Dissanayake. According to the President's office, discussions between the President and the Russian ambassador focused on strengthening the long-standing bilateral relations between Sri Lanka and Russia, with both parties highlighting the importance of enhancing cooperation in key areas such as trade, investment, culture and education, while reaffirming their commitment to deepening diplomatic ties for the mutual benefit of both nations.
The Ceylon Petroleum Corporation, the Lanka Indian Oil Company and Sinopec announced their revised fuel prices for October with effect from midnight yesterday. Accordingly, the prices of all fuel types except 95-octane petrol have been reduced. Despite the downward revision, the Trade Union Alliance of the Samagi Janabalavega raised concerns that government could have reduced prices further, but chose not to do so. Meanwhile, Cabinet spokesperson Minister Vijitha Herath revealed that the latest price revision was not carried out under the fuel pricing formula.
The Ceylon Petroleum Corporation announced their monthly fuel price revision for the month of October. Accordingly, prices of all fuel types except 95-octane petrol were reduced with effect from midnight yesterday. The price of a litre of 92-octane petrol was reduced by 21 rupees, bringing its price down to 311 rupees per litre. The price of a litre of auto diesel was reduced by 24 rupees to 283 rupees. Meanwhile, the price of a litre of super diesel was brought down by 33 rupees, bringing its price per litre to 319 rupees. The new price of a litre of kerosene is 183 rupees, following a 19 rupee price reduction. The price of a litre of 95-octane petrol will remain unchanged this month at 377 rupees per litre. The Lanka Indian Oil Corporation and Chinese Petroleum Corporation Sinopec also announced their revised fuel prices in line with the fuel price revision of the Ceylon Petroleum Corporation. However, a litre of auto diesel will be sold at 280 rupees by Sinopec, which is 3 rupees less than the price offered by Lanka IOC and the Ceylon Petroleum Corporation. Against this backdrop, the National Transport Commission announced the reduction of bus fares by 4.24% effective from midnight tonight. Accordingly, the minimum fare has been reduced by 1 rupee to 27 rupees. Meanwhile, three-wheeler drivers also expressed views on the fuel price revision.
Considering the prevailing situation, we expected that fuel prices would be reduced by more than they were. Despite the revised fuel prices, three-wheeler associations are unable to reduce fares.
Similarly, the All Island School Children Transport Association said that the school van fares will not be reduced in spite of the fuel price reduction.
No fuel except petrol was reduced significantly. We could have considered reducing school van fares if diesel prices were reduced to 250 rupees at least.
In the meantime, the Trade Union Alliance of the Samagi Janabalavega pointed out the possibility of further reducing fuel prices.
At a time when global fuel prices were reduced following the reduction in global crude oil prices, we are objecting to this current pricing formula, which places an undue burden on the people.
However, speaking at the cabinet briefing today, cabinet spokesman Minister Vijitha Herath revealed that the fuel price revision for the month of October was not revised based on the national pricing formula.
President Anurukumara Dissanayake increased the fertilizer subsidy granted to farmers from 15,000 rupees per hectare to 25,000 rupees in late September. However, against a backdrop where a parliamentary election has been announced, the Election Commission took steps to temporarily suspend the provision of the subsidy, citing that it may grant an unfair advantage to a single party ahead of the parliamentary election. The election regulatory body advised the relevant proposal be implemented following the conclusion of the general election. In the meanwhile, the National Organizations Collective submitted a complaint to the Election Commission this afternoon, objecting the Commission's decision. In view of the situation, several farmer associations warned of a possible shortage of rice in future if the fertilizer subsidy is not granted for the upcoming cultivation season. The World Children's Day was celebrated across the world today under the theme Protect and Treat Every Child Equally. The World Children's Day and Elders' Day too was celebrated today. Addressing the national celebration of World Children's Day, Prime Minister Dr. Harini Amarasuriya affirmed that the government will build a society which respects the dignity of senior citizens of Sri Lanka and ensures the rights of children.
The World Children's Day is celebrated this year under the theme Protect and Treat Every Child Equally. The World Elders' Day is also celebrated today under the theme Aging with Dignity, the importance of strengthening care and support systems for older persons worldwide. The national celebration of the Children's Day was held in Battaramula this morning under the patronage of Prime Minister Dr. Harini Amarasuriya. During the ceremony, a first day cover was released in commemoration of the World Children's Day.
සරපුතනුවන් මුල්දින කවරය සඳහා සිතුවම නිර්මාණය කරපු දියණිය මැදගම අභය විද්‍යාලයේ 11 වෙනි ශ්‍රේණි අධ්‍යාපනය ලබන එල් දැහැමි දේවින්ද්‍යා.
In the meantime, a draft of the National Policy for Child Daycare was presented to the Prime Minister by the Secretary to the Ministry of Women, Child and Youth Affairs and Sports, K. Mahesan.
දරුවන්ට හොඳම දේ ලැබිය යුතුයි කියලා අපි විශ්වාස කරනවා. ඒ වගේම තමයි අපේ ජ්‍යෙෂ්ඨ පුරවැසියන්.
We believe that children as well as senior citizens must be provided with the best. Senior citizens face numerous crises at present. Their lack of financial independence has transformed them into dependents. This should not be normalized. Our efforts are directed towards building a society where the dignity of senior citizens is respected, leading them to spend independent and happy lives. I must note that the Grade 5 scholarship examination has transformed into a crisis. We are working towards formulating the best possible solution under the directives of the President.
සියලුම දරුවන්ට සාධාරණ විසඳුමක් ලැබිය යුතු හොඳම විසඳුම ලබා ගන්න අපි මේ වෙලාවේ වැඩ කරනවා.
Meanwhile, Prime Minister Dr. Harini Amarasuriya engaged in an inspection of the Lady Ridgeway Hospital for Children. In the meantime, FM Derana, in collaboration with Manusat Derana, organised a Children's Day programme in Galnava today.
President Anurukumara Dissanayake has instructed that the evaluation of answer sheets of the Grade 5 scholarship examination be submitted or suspended for a period of 2 weeks. The President's office reported that President Dissanayake yesterday engaged in dialogue with a group of parents who had protested the leakage of questions in this year's scholarship examination paper. During the meeting at the Presidential Secretariat, the Presidents and parents had requested that the President consider holding an election once again for the first paper of the Grade 5 scholarship examination. The parents had requested so, claiming that 8 questions and not 3 were leaked prior to the examination. And in politics, former parliamentarian Saman Ratnapriya says that the United National Party will take a decision tomorrow on the parties to its alliance they plan to form and the symbol under which the alliance will contest the upcoming parliamentary election.
A special meeting was held earlier this morning regarding the upcoming general election with the participation of politicians who supported former President Ranil Wickremesinghe during the recent presidential election. The meeting took place at former President Wickremesinghe's Election Operations Office on Flower Road, Colombo.
අද සාකච්ඡා සාර්ථකයිද? ඉතින් සියලු කණ්ඩායම් ඒකරාශී වෙලා යන්න ඕන කියන ස්ථාවරේ බරපතල විදිහට කියනවා. ගෑස් සිලින්ඩරය සම්බන්ධ අවසාන තීන්දුව ගන්න තියෙන්නේ මැතිවරණ කොමිෂන් සභාවට. මැතිවරණ කොමිෂන් සභාව දෙන තීරණයත් එක්ක තමයි සලකුණ සම්බන්ධ කාරණාව අවසාන වෙන්නේ. දැන් ඔබතුමාලගේ මේ සාකච්ඡා තව දිග්ගැස්සෙන්න මැතිවරණේ ජයග්‍රහණය කරන්න අමාරු වෙන්නේ නේද? හෙට දවසේ අපි කොහොමද එන්නේ කවුරුත් එක්ක දෙන්නේ මොකද සලකුණ කියන කාරණේ පිළිබඳව සාකච්ඡා කරලා අවසාන කරනවා. අපි උත්සාහ කරනවා තවදුරටත් සමගි ජන බලවේගයත් එක්කත් සාකච්ඡා විවෘතව තියන්න. ඒගොල්ලෝ සාධනීය විදිහට එනවා නම් අපිට සියලු කණ්ඩායම් ඒකරාශී
Meanwhile, representatives of various political parties expressed their opinions regarding the upcoming general election.
කිසිසේත්ම නැහැ. අපි ප්‍රතිපත්තිමය ලෙස රටේ ආර්ථිකයේ ගොඩනගන නිශ්චිත වැඩපිළිවෙලක් ඉදිරිපත් කළ තිබුණේ දිලිත් ජයවීර මැතිතුමාගේ සර්ව ජන බලය පමණයි. ඒ නිසා මාලිමාව පාර්ලිමේන්තුවේ ආණ්ඩුවේ වාඩි වුණ දෙයින් ප්‍රධාන විපක්ෂ වෙලා මේ ආණ්ඩුවට විකල්පේ බවට පත් වීමට සුදුසුකම් තියෙන බව ඔප්පු කරලා තියෙන අපි පමණයි. අපි ඒ වක්කෙන් බාර ගන්න සූදානම්.
සමහර අදහසක් තියෙනවා බලයේ ඉන්න පිරිසටම කරගෙන යන්න තව කාලයක් දීලා බලන්න ඕනේ.
ඉදිරි පාර්ලිමේන්තු මැතිවරණේ මාලිමාවට කිසිම බාධාවකින් තොරව සරල බහුතරය ලබා ගැනීමේ හැකියාව තියෙනවා. ඒ වගේම ලැබිය යුතුයි. නැත්නම් රට අස්ථාවර වෙනවා. ඒ වගේමයි කිසිසේත්ම 3/2 බලයක් නොලැබිය යුතුයි. මොකද ලංකා ඉතිහාසයේ පුරා 3/2 බලය ලැබුණු සෑම ආණ්ඩුවක් විසින්ම ආණ්ඩුවත් විනාශ කරගෙන රටත් විනාශ කරා. මේ ආණ්ඩුවට ඒ දෙන්න නොවෙන්න නම් සාමාන්‍ය බහුතරය ලැබුණත් 3/2ක් නොලැබිය යුතුයි.
Fast track your career from O-levels with eSoft. Crunchy goodness for hunger on the go.
We take you to business news now. Channa Gunawardena has been appointed as the new chairman of Litro Gas Lanka Limited and Litro Gas Terminal Lanka Private Limited. Gunawardena's appointment follows the resignation of Mudita Peris, who served in the position from the 13th of June 2022 until the 26th of September this year. Channa Gunawardena is a fellow of both the Chartered Institute of Management Accountants of the United Kingdom and the Chartered Accountants of Sri Lanka. He is also a graduate of the University of Sri Jayawardenepura and the University of Southern Queensland in Australia. The Colombo Stock Exchange shares closed in green today with the third turnover crossing 3.5 billion rupees. The all-share price index in the meantime climbed 1.16% to settle at 11,992.91. Trading volume on the index was recorded at 133.8 million. The benchmark S&P SL20 meanwhile climbed 1.95% to close at 3,520.92. The banking sector was the top contributor to turnover, and foreign investors were net sellers, offloading stocks worth 569 million rupees. On to corporate affairs. Haley's PLC announced the reappointment of Dhammika Pereira as the executive director and co-chairman of the company effective today. The company disclosed that Dhammika Pereira holds 51.01% of ordinary shares of Haley's. With that, here's a look at more corporate affairs in brief.
Dhammika Perera has been reappointed as the non-executive director to the board and co-chairman of Haley's PLC, with effect from today. The board of directors of Haley's PLC has notified the Colombo Stock Exchange of the appointment. Dhammika Perera holds 51.01% of the ordinary shares of Haley's PLC. Meanwhile, Burlington English, a global leader in English language learning and assessment, expanded into the Sri Lankan market with the aim of enhancing English language education in Sri Lanka. Burlington English empowers educators through its capacity building workshops and webinars to equip them with the latest techniques. In the next 5 years, the organization aims to partner with 50,000 educators and 500,000 learners in Sri Lanka to strengthen English proficiency across the nation. In other corporate news, Trainatech, a local software company, has partnered with the Central Environmental Authority to create a new air quality monitoring system. This partnership aims to address air pollution issues by providing real-time data and insights, representing a major step forward to improve sustainability and protect public health across the country.
Well, Japan's parliament today elected Shigeru Ishiba as the new Prime Minister of the country. With that, we wrap up tonight's edition of First at 9. I'm Indiveri Amwat. Have a pleasant evening. Good night.